Greetings, sentient beings and gracile hominids. Welcome to this bonus live stream. I thought it would be amusing to read the end-user license agreement and terms of service from the video game Sky, Children of the Light. I suspect a lot of this is actually common to many games. Some of it is actually somewhat familiar to me from past experience many years ago, because I was actually involved in writing something like this for a piece of software, which was interesting because we had to get legal advice and so on and so forth and what have you before putting it all together. Okay, let's be about it. So, this is pretty much what comes up when you start a new account playing Sky Children of the Light. This is also what is linked to in the support menu. According to this was last updated on May 24th, 2018, effective from May 25th, 2018. But given that the game itself links to this, I think we can treat this as definitive. This is their current end-user license agreement. I will probably make comments along the way. I should, as I have previously stated in the intro, point out that I do not have any legal education, but I have been exposed to sales and marketing, and I have some idea sometimes of how these things can be interpreted. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, the real purpose of this stream is for the benefit of everyone with insomnia, because I am told I have a voice that is very nice to go to sleep to. So, here we go. End-user license agreement and general terms of service. We really appreciate you and our wonderful community for enjoying the games we create. In order to create a better player experience for everyone, we require all of our players to carefully review and accept the following general considerations: community guidelines, end-user license agreement, and website terms of service. This not only helps to preserve a healthy and fun environment for all of our players, but it also allows us to continuously improve your experience. Please note, the authors of this document know perfectly well that just about nobody will have done as they suggest and carefully reviewed and accepted this document. So this is actually covering themselves. That's the whole purpose of it, from a legal point of view. Because you do, after all, have to click on I agree, which legally speaking means that you have, in fact, carefully read and understood what is presented. Now, of course, the minor problem here is that many of the players of Sky are young people, and they will not have read this, nor, if they have, will they necessarily understand it. Our privacy policy is available to inform you of our data collection practices and your rights with respect to the data we collect from you. We provide it to you separately for two reasons. One, it is not an agreement to which you must consent in order to enjoy our products. Instead, the policy exists solely to communicate our practices and your rights with respect to those practices. And two, your privacy rights are important to us and deserve your undivided attention. Please take time to review our privacy policy. And once again, I don't remember ever seeing the privacy policy anywhere except from this website. You have to be really curious to go pursuing things, even as far as I have so far on this first screen. General considerations and definitions. For the purposes of this agreement, website means thatgamecompany.com and all subpages thereto, including social media pages and accounts. For example, follow us at thatgamecompany on Twitter. And digital storefronts such as the Steam page for That Game Company or any of our respective titles, or title storefronts via Xbox Live Arcade, the PlayStation Network, or the Nintendo eShop. Herein digital storefronts. The term game or games means our interactive entertainment products, namely Sky, Journey, Flower, and Flow, including all game client and all versions thereof across all consoles and playable platforms, and also refers to all expansions, updates, and game keys for digital download, as well as all content and intellectual property embodied therein. Intellectual property means all copyrights, trademarks, patents, and inventions, trade secrets, personality rights, and other proprietary rights commonly identified as intellectual property rights or pseudo-intellectual property rights by applicable foreign or domestic law. And by way of example, but by no means a limitation of the foregoing, includes visual assets, game code, artwork, music, audio-visual works, methods, processes, prototypes, technology, storyboards, characters, plot devices, slogans, logos, and any material distributed under confidentiality or non-disclosure restrictions. That has got to be one of the longest single sentences I've ever actually sat down and read. The sole exception being Douglas Adams in one of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books, where he deliberately does this extremely long sentence, and then at the end of it says, go back and read that again. By accessing the website or downloading or purchasing the games, you hereby accept the community guidelines, end-user license agreement, and website terms of service contained herein, collectively the agreements, in full. Do not continue to use the website or games if you do not accept all of the terms and conditions set forth below. Once again, nobody's read it, or almost nobody's read it, and you can guarantee that most young people have not. The following terminology applies to these community guidelines, terms of service, end-user license agreement, and any or related agreements referenced herein. End-user. You and your refers to you, the person accessing this website/game and accepting the company's terms and conditions. The company, TGC, ourselves, we, our, and us refers to our company, That Game Company Incorporated. Party, parties, or us refers to both the end user and ourselves, or either the end user or ourselves. All terms refer to the offer, acceptance, and consideration of payment necessary to undertake the process of our assistance to the end user in the most appropriate manner, whether by formal meetings of a fixed duration or any other means, for the express purpose of meeting the end user's needs in respect of provision of the company's stated services/products in accordance with and subject to United States and applicable international law. Any use of the above terminology or other words in the singular, plural, capitalization, and or he/she or they are taken as interchangeable and therefore as referring to same. And excuse me a second, I just have to deny somebody on Twitch who just spammed a message. Where was I? Oh, I was getting down to the community guidelines, wasn't I? Oops. There we go. I want to make sure that everybody can read it at the same time that I'm reading it. Community guidelines. We want to make sure that our games and website remain fun, healthy, and safe environments for you and your friends to enjoy. By accepting our terms of service and end-user license agreement, you understand that these community guidelines apply to your use of both the website and our games, as well as any and all social media channels, including but not limited our digital storefronts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and similar social media platforms, as well as online video and streaming platforms such as, by way of example and by no means a limitation of the foregoing, YouTube.com and Twitch.tv, in connection with games operated or managed by that game company, collectively herein the community. Your failure to comply with any part of the community guidelines may result in your TGC account suspension, termination, or we may otherwise ban you from further contributing to the community by whatever legal means available to us. Furthermore, you accept sole and complete liability for any content shared by you to our community. As such, you agreed to indemnify and hold harmless that game company and its officers, employees, agents, affiliates, subcontractors, members, and assigns against any and all claims, disputes, demands, actions, suits, damages, liabilities, obligations, losses, settlements, judgments, costs, and expenses, including without limitation attorneys' fees and costs, made or entered into against us that arise out of, relate to, or are the result of content you share with or to the community. Wow. Okay, I think that is now the longest sentence I have read since the previous longest sentence I have read, with the exception of Douglas Adams, obviously. I am not even going to try and read anything into that because it is sufficiently long and dense and obtuse that anything I say or comment on has a very good chance of being wrong. But again, this legalese is for their benefit. TGC account. An account will automatically be registered to you when you first log in to the game, TGC account. We may enable features that allow you to modify or change the information you provide to us through your TGC account from time to time, subject to our privacy policy. You do not own your TGC account, which at all times remains the property of that game company. We reserve the right to cancel your TGC account at any time pursuant to these agreements. And as you will notice, that is very open-ended, and its purpose is to protect that game company. User comments and feedback. Our community offers various opportunities to interact and share your opinions and thoughts with us and other end users in-game or via other platforms such as, but not limited to, forums, social media pages, digital storefronts, Discord, or via community initiatives. However, please note that the opinions or views expressed or statements made to the community, other than by that game company's employees, officers, or verified community leader, via posts, user comments, feedback, wiki entries, online chat, in-game or via Discord or comparable social media outlets, or via the communication features of the game, collectively referred to herein as user comments, do not reflect the opinions or views of that game company. Which is quite understandable in many respects, and I really can't fault them for saying that. We do not review, edit, or modify user comments prior to their publication to the community. However, we reserve the right to remove or modify any user comments shared with the community for any reason. By sharing user comments and accepting the terms of these community guidelines, you acknowledge that we may make such deletions or changes without notice to you, nor is any such change or removal subject to review, appeal, or revocation. Which is pretty much to be expected. That's actually, despite the fact that that might sound like, say, an infringement of freedom of speech, you have to understand, one, freedom of speech is not the same in every country. And two, they are a private company and they are allowed to define what is and is not allowed, which is important to remember because people sometimes don't appreciate that. Examples of such complaints, for example, include both YouTube and Twitter. People have complained that they have been banned and had their freedom of speech inhibited by YouTube and Twitter. But the people who do that forget two things. One, YouTube and Twitter are essentially private companies. They can set their own standards. The second thing to remember is that when you sign up to social media, you typically agree to the policies of that social media company. This is entirely legal and allowed and to be expected. In fact, and I'm doing a brief digression here, people who work for companies often have to sign non-disclosure agreements. And such people do so and rarely complain about the fact that they are voluntarily restricting their freedom of speech and expression. So all that is worth bearing in mind when reading things such as I just did. Continuing. You retain ownership in your user comments and all intellectual rights contained therein, provided such user comments do not contain feedback as defined below. We may from time to time publicly share or redistribute user comments on our website or through other community channels, press releases, or promotional and marketing materials. You hereby grant us a non-exclusive, perpetual, and irrevocable right and license to use your user comments in connection with the promotion of the game. Sorry, that pause is because I have a suspicion the writing's a little awkward there. So what that basically means, as I understand it, is if you make a comment on their official Facebook page, for example, that game company is allowed to use it as much as they like for whatever purpose they deem applicable. We appreciate any feedback, suggestions, improvements, constructive criticisms, or ideas you may have in connection with the game or website, in brackets feedback. However, we cannot guarantee that the feedback you provide has not already occurred to us. By submitting feedback to us, you hereby assign all right, title, and interest in and to the feedback to that game company, including but not limited to intellectual property rights. To the extent that any such rights cannot be assigned under applicable US or international law, you hereby waive your existing or future rights and release us from any and all claims arising from our use of your feedback. So, for example, that might mean if on social media you make a suggestion, however brief or detailed, whichever, that game company then looks at and says, oh, that's a good idea, we'll implement it. You don't have any rights to stop them from doing so. That's basically what that means. And in fact, they have covered themselves there by saying, however, we cannot guarantee that the feedback you provide has not already occurred to us. And actually, that is something to bear in mind. People like myself who might make a suggestion online, there's a very, very good chance, firstly, that suggestion has been made multiple times, and secondly, it probably has occurred to the employees of that game company because that's their job. User-generated content. We encourage our end users to create and share fan art, fan fiction, video montages, let's play videos, and other creative content with our community, herein user-generated content. Likewise, we encourage streaming and recording your gameplay and sharing it with our community, or through social media video streaming services such as youtube.com or twitch.tv. For the purpose of these agreements, we also consider your streams and videos containing our game user-generated content. We want you to create and express yourself freely, and you retain all rights in and to your user-generated content. By sharing your user-generated content with the community, you grant that game company an unrestricted, irrevocable, non-exclusive, and universal right and license to reproduce, modify, and redistribute your user-generated content solely in connection with our games. That one strikes me as being a little confusing. On the one hand, well, no, there is no on the one hand. Basically, it means that if I create a video that goes viral on YouTube, that game company has basically just claimed that they can use it for whatever purpose they want. And I have, as far as I can tell from reading this, no right to stop them. And I am just rereading it to make sure that I understand it. Yep, I think I got that right. However, user-generated content shared with the community must comply with these community guidelines, the term of service, and our end-user license agreement. Failure to comply with any of the terms contained therein, may result in the cancellation of your TGC account and whatever other legal remedies may be available to us, including issue takedowns to the appropriate service providers due to the breach of the licenses and rights guaranteed to you herein. As our latest game, Sky, includes chat functionality, it is important that you comply with our community rules and restrictions when linking or sharing any user-generated content. The privacy policy is also important in connection with user-generated content, as we may collect, store, and share your user-generated content pursuant to that policy. That's actually an important thing for people like me. I basically have to, my content has to basically agree with how they think their games should be played and your behavior within the game. I think that's a reasonable summary. Given that Sky is primarily played by younger people, that is actually not completely unreasonable within the context of that game. I can certainly see situations where somebody posts a video on YouTube that they deem inappropriate because they do not feel it correctly represents how behavior in the game or on their official social media should be done. Sorry, that sentence was a little confusing for me. I hope it was comprehensible. Infringing content. To the extent possible under international law, that game company is not liable for any copyright infringement arising from any user-generated content shared with the community or through our games or website. However, under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, we are able to provide the lawful owners of copyrighted works recourse in the event that their copyrights are infringed. If you believe that your copyrights are being violated by user-generated content, user comments, or other materials located in our game and on our website or other community channels under our direct control, please contact us so that we may investigate your claims and, if appropriate, modify or remove the infringing material. We require the following information before we are able to investigate your claim. 1. An electronic or physical signature of the person authorized to act on behalf of the owner of the copyright. 2. A description of the copyrighted work that you believe has been infringed. 3. A description of where the material that you claim is infringing is located or identified on the website or in the game or community channels under our direct control, including a verifiable link to the material. 4. Your name, address, telephone number, and email address. 5. A statement by you that you have a good faith belief that the disputed use is not authorized by the copyright owner, its agent, or the law, and is not a permissible fair use of your work. And 6. A statement by you made under penalty of perjury that the information submitted to us is accurate and that you are the owner of the copyright or authorized to act on the owner's behalf. How many people actually knew that all that was in there? I should just mention I got a comment on my Twitch feed, quotes, "I am confused." Yes, to be honest, so am I. This would require a legal expert to go over and properly understand and communicate, so I'm not even going to try. And I have some minor understanding of copyright and intellectual property, and yeah, this is completely beyond me to take apart. The above information should be provided to our registered DMC agent for notice of claims of copyright or other intellectual property infringement, who can be reached by emailing legal@thatgamecompany.com. If you believe your content has been taken down pursuant to the above procedures in error, we require the following information sent to the agent referenced above before we can investigate your claim or repost your content. 1. Your physical or electronic signature. 2. Your name, address, and phone number. 3. Identification of the material and its location before it was removed. 4. A statement under penalty of perjury that the material was removed by mistake or misidentification. 5. Your consent to the jurisdiction of a federal court in the district where you live, if you are in the US, or your consent to the jurisdiction of a federal court in the district where your service provider is located, if you are not in the US. And 6. Your consent to accept service of process from the party who submitted the takedown notice. Wow. This actually means that posting something on YouTube now has, as far as that game company is concerned, and I hope I'm getting this right, at least 2 levels of potential copyright infringement. One is your video that you uploaded. Does it contain copyrightable material that you shouldn't have uploaded? And 2, then you've got that game company's own opinion of whether you violated their terms and services. I think. Now, I do have a slight story to tell. I did upload part of a live stream. Was it last week or the week before? And this is something to watch out for, because in the game, so you've got levels of copyright within the game. You've got the game itself, but then you have copyrighted material also in the game. And in my case, YouTube detected that there was music from the musician slash singer Aurora. And YouTube's copyright system identified this quite correctly and then allowed me, through YouTube's own services, to remove that music but leave everything else intact. So you see what I mean by levels of copyright. You may think, well, this is gameplay, I uploaded it, that should be fine, but because it contained copyrighted material within that video, that would have to be removed. And if you watch enough YouTube videos, you will have seen occasions where people have muted music to avoid copyright infringement, which is actually quite reasonable, although it may not seem like that at first when you first consider it. I will briefly mention one other situation I watched happen more or less live, and that was the YouTuber Mumbo Jumbo. Now, Mumbo Jumbo is a rather successful Minecraft YouTuber. I haven't watched him lately. I don't know what his current status is. But when I first watched one of his videos, he had a musical intro. And to me, it was obvious that that musical intro sampled from a song. And to be honest, I can't remember which song it was. And I did wonder at the time how he had permission to use that snippet of music. And what happened was Warner Chappell, who owned the copyright to that snippet of the music, issued something like 400 copyright strikes against him for the use of that music. Now, I think Mumbo inadvertently thought he was perfectly within his legal rights to do so, because his musical intro had been assembled for him by somebody else who had granted him the right to use it. However, the person who assembled that musical intro had sampled copyrighted music and thus violated the copyright. So while it may seem like the responsibility was that of the person who assembled the intro, it was also Mumbo's responsibility to double and triple check. But music copyright gets quite complicated. Example, and I know I'm digressing, I'll go back to the document in a minute. Take, for example, somebody writes music. All right, they might write the music. Somebody else might write the lyrics to that music. Somebody else might make a recording of their music. And that is 3 copyrights already. Then you have somebody who makes a cover of the original recording. That's a 4th level of copyright. Complicated, isn't it? So, yeah, copyright is not simple. In the end, by the way, Mumbo went through and I believe it was he and his girlfriend who worked for him actually went and edited out the intro from every single one of those 400 copyright strikes. Because they had to. And you may say, well, that seems a little excessive. I kind of agree. 400 copyright strikes at once, yes, that's excessive. But it was an automated system. There is no way that a single person was going to be able to issue a copyright strike. You pretty much have to automate that kind of thing, because otherwise people will get away with copyright violations all the time. And I guarantee they get away with it on YouTube quite a lot anyway. So on the one hand, it was excessive, but on the other hand, Warner Chappell had the right to protect the copyright from which they make money. Where were we? Community rules and restrictions. By entering into these agreements and accepting the community guidelines, you agree to comply with the following. Nothing you share with the community, including but not limited to user-generated content or user comments, may contain content that infringes on the intellectual property rights, including copyright, trademark, and patent rights, proprietary rights, trade secrets, personality rights, contract rights or restrictions, or other right of any third party. To the extent that any third party is embodied in any content you share with the community, including but not limited to user-generated content and user comments, you have acquired the necessary rights and licenses to reproduce the same. I think that goes back to my example just now of where Aurora's music was included in a video clip that I uploaded. You will not harass other users. Harassment includes, but is not limited to, publicly disclosing personally identifiable information of another end user or member of the community, stalking, doxing, or otherwise infringing on the privacy of any member of the community, disparaging, defaming, name-calling, or engaging in any form of discrimination against another member of the community. And I think this is the bit where this video just went from being safe for children to not safe for children, and I shall mark it as such. Engaging in any act of sexual misconduct, including but not limited to sexual innuendo, sharing sexually explicit content, including but not limited to sexually explicit content in user-generated content or user comments, or making offensive or inappropriate advances or comments to a member of the community. Yeah, I'm definitely going to mark this as not safe for children because those rules can be quite rigorous. You agree that the list of conduct identified as harassment above is not exhaustive. We reserve the right to determine what constitutes harassment in our sole and exclusive discretion. That's an important one to remember. If you say something that you don't think is harassment, but that game company thinks is harassment, it is that game company's opinion which is paramount. You will not engage in acts of revenge, disparagement, or retaliation against us for any feature contained in or modification made to our games that you dislike. Your sole remedy for that is to stop playing that game. That's reasonable. You will not engage in solicitation or advertise other products or services to the community without our prior consent. Email is sufficient. That is an interesting one. It does make me wonder how that game company would respond if, for example, you're a YouTuber who has in-video promotion of products. I think I would interpret that as being get permission from that game company first. You may not commercially distribute, sell, or otherwise commercially exploit user-generated content, including video streaming, without our prior consent. Email is sufficient. And I think that would also include monetization of videos featuring Sky. To what extent they would act on that, I don't know. But again, I would say, looking at this, and this is something I've seen elsewhere, that if I were to be able to monetize my YouTube channel, I would probably find myself obliged to contact that game company to get their permission. And I don't know what they would do at that point, but it is worth bearing in mind. Oops. And now we get to the end user license agreement. License. We retain exclusive rights for any and all state, federal, and international intellectual property and proprietary rights in and to our games and all copies of our games, including without limitation all copyrights, inventions, trademark rights, trade secret rights, trade dress rights, and any and all other intellectual property and property rights embodied in or derived from our games. We prohibit the copying, reproduction, and circumvention of technology of our games beyond the terms of this license. Our games are licensed to you as opposed to being sold or assigned to you, and your continued legal use of the games is contingent upon your compliance with this agreement and the license terms set forth below. Basically, you don't own the game. This is something that I think is becoming increasingly common. Even if you have a physical copy of the game, I think / understand that it is not technically yours. You have licensed a copy. Strangely, you also see this with services like Amazon. If you buy a book on Amazon and download it, you do not own the copy of the book that you acquired. Amazon owns it, not you. License terms. We hereby grant you a non-exclusive, revocable, non-transferable, and limited right to license one copy of each game you download or purchase from us or a licensed third party for your personal, non-commercial use. For purposes of this end-user license agreement only, the game. Continued use of the game is contingent upon your compliance with the following. Excuse me a second. You represent that you are an adult in your country of residence, or you are at least 13 if you reside in the United States. You agree to this end-user license agreement on behalf of yourself and at your discretion for one minor child for whom you are a parent or guardian and whom you have authorized to play the game using the license granted to you. However, please review our privacy policy if you are a parent or guardian allowing any child to play our games. Now, that is interesting because it seems to me that what they're basically saying is young people under the age of 13 can't play the game? Although I suspect that section about minor child for whom you are a parent or guardian and whom you have authorized to play the game, that, I think, is what allows people younger than 13 to play the game. I hope I've got that right, because obviously there are going to be young people under the age of 13 who play this game. That, I must admit, I do find a little confusing. You may not modify, distribute, transmit, display, perform, reproduce, except for one archival and backup copy as permitted by applicable laws, publish, license, create, derivative works from, adapt, translate, sublicense, auction, rent, license, or sell all or any part of the game. In addition, you may not hack, emulate, reverse engineer, decompile, or disassemble any part of the game. All rights not expressly granted are reserved by us. You agree that you have no interest, monetary or otherwise, in any feature, content, or intellectual property contained in the game. That is, I can actually think of a direct applicable example to that. Essentially what that is saying is, if you have a Switch emulator or an emulator for any other platform that you can play Sky or any of that game company's games on, you are not allowed to emulate it. That's it. That's what that is about. So if you have, and I'm not going to name them, if you have a Nintendo Switch emulator, that particular section of the end user license agreement means legally you cannot run any of Sky's games on that emulator. To be honest, given that it's free to play, it shouldn't be a problem. But nonetheless, that legally means you can't play any of that game company's games on an emulator. You must comply with the community guidelines set forth above. Failure to comply with the community guidelines will result in the revocation of all rights set forth herein. Any breach substantial enough to cause harm to that game company or a third party may be accompanied by the application of any and all legal rights and claims reserved by us herein. Absent a valid distribution agreement between you and that game company, you may not commercially exploit or otherwise make the game available on any third-party network, FTP, internet website, torrent site, file sharing service, intranet, or cloud, whereby individuals other than you may download and install the game. You further agree that you will not link to any such third-party network, torrent, FTP, file-sharing service, intranet, or cloud that is not legally owned by us or our distributors. For the sake of clarity, commercial exploit, as used herein, includes offers to perform in-game services for other end users in exchange for payment outside of the game. That's actually fairly straightforward. But it is also, please note, means that you cannot take a backup and then post it online, basically. Now, that's probably pretty obvious, but that covers that one completely. You may not use cheats, automation software, bots, hacks, mods, or any other unauthorized third-party software designed to modify the game experience. In fact, I have heard anecdotal accounts of people being banned for doing so. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this could include something as simple as keyboard and mouse recordings, something which is quite technically possible. I would interpret this to anybody watching as meaning you cannot use keyboard and mouse recordings to, for example, do a candle run. That would basically, I'm not sure whether they would regard that as a hack, a bot, or a third-party piece of software, but it would strike me that that would be in violation of the terms and conditions if you were to do that. You may not use any unauthorized third-party software that intercepts, mines, or otherwise collects information from or through the game, including without limitation any software that reads areas of RAM used by the game to store information about a character or the game environment, provided, however, that we may, at our sole and absolute discretion, allow the use of certain third-party user interfaces. That is a continuation of the previous paragraph. In other words, you cannot investigate how the game works internally. You may not modify or cause to be modified any files that are a part of the game in any way not expressly authorized by us. Straightforward enough. You may not provide or develop matchmaking services for the game, or intercept, emulate, or redirect the communication protocols used by us in any way for any purpose, including without limitation unauthorized play over the internet, network play, or as part of content aggregation networks. You can't use it as a dating service. I'm assuming that's what they mean by matchmaking services, which, given that it is made for young people or used by young people, that is entirely reasonable. You may not facilitate, create, or maintain any unauthorized connection to the game or the service, including without limitation: A. Any connection to any unauthorized server that emulates or attempts to emulate the service, and B. Any connection using programs or tools not expressly provided to us. You may not violate any applicable law or regulation in connection with your use of the game, and disrupt or assist in the disruption of A. Any computer used to support the service, each a server, or B. Any other end user's game experience. Any attempt by you to disrupt the service or undermine the legitimate operation of the game client may be a violation of criminal and civil laws. Now, it occurs to me that this is going to be one of those things that would prevent people from having private servers in the future. Sooner or later, that game company is going to stop supporting Sky. Sooner or later, the servers that we currently run Sky on will shut down. This game will come to an end. That basically means you cannot set up your own private server. At the moment, at the very least. That would have to be seriously modified to allow for that. And I hope my interpretation there is correct. And again, they are entirely within their rights to do that. This is how they have decided the game will be played. This is how services will be provided. I have to confess, I would like to see when the game comes to the end of its lifetime, I would like to see the possibility of people being able to set up private servers. I don't think at this point we're going to see it happen. I don't think we need to worry too much at this point because the PC version only came out this year, so with a bit of luck we can expect at least another 5 years or so of active online play, at least for PC users. I don't know about console or mobile users. In-game purchases. Virtual goods. You may participate in our virtual items service offering if you have a valid active TGC account, the virtual item system. The virtual item system allows you to pay for a license of various in-game virtual items through the service. The virtual item service is provided through our game and the website, and you may obtain virtual items for access through the game online or submitting a prepaid code through the site or use of the service. That game company has the right to and may limit the amount of virtual items you can purchase or that you can maintain in your TGC account at any given time. We may also provide you with virtual items as part of a promotion or through other means, such as for completing certain quests or achievements through your participation in the service or that game company-sponsored contests or sweepstakes. You agree that you will be solely responsible for paying any applicable taxes related to the acquisition or use of or access to virtual items. You are solely responsible for verifying that the correct amount and type of virtual items that have been added to or deducted from your TGC account for each virtual good transaction. The interesting part about that, for me, just looking at this, is this one. Here, I'm just going to highlight it. They can limit the amount of virtual items you can purchase or that you can maintain in your TGC account at any given time, which implies that there might, for some people, be a limit to how many in-app purchases they can make for these virtual items, such as cloaks, hoods, face masks, that kind of thing. I've not heard of anything where people have complained that they've had their virtual item removed, but in principle, I think TGC could do that. And by playing the game, you're effectively agreeing to that. Game assets. Prohibition on out-of-service exchange. You hereby acknowledge and agree that you have no claim, right, title, proprietary or ownership interest in any of the game assets, regardless of any consideration offered or paid in exchange for those game assets, and that game company shall not be liable in any manner for the destruction, deletion, modification, impairment, hacking of, or any other damage or loss of any kind caused to any of the game assets, including but not limited to deletion of game assets upon the termination or expiration of your account. Now, that basically means you don't have any rights to anything you acquire within the game, and that technically, if you are banned, and I'm kind of guessing here, if you are banned and then you get your account reinstated and you find you have lost some of your virtual items, such as cloaks, masks, and so on, that is perfectly within TGC's ability to withhold, whether by accident or otherwise. You agree that you will not buy, sell, or trade, or offer to buy, sell, or trade any game assets, except that you may trade certain in-game items, for example, houses, armor, weapons, consumables, for other in-game items and or in-game currency in an in-game transaction expressly permitted by that game company. For example, an authorized transaction using an in-game auction house or that game company sanctioned in-game item trade between TGC account holders. For the avoidance of doubt, and in no way limiting the foregoing, you are prohibited from offering for sale or purchasing any game assets, whether or not held by TGC accounts registered to you outside of the service through a website or any other medium, or exchanging game assets, whether inside or outside the service, for anything of value outside the service or in the real world. Now, there's two things that immediately occur to me here. You cannot sell your account. You have an avatar, somebody else wants to buy it. That means you can't. And I have seen people attempt to sell that game company accounts on at least one occasion on Facebook. It also means, and I'm guessing here, that if there were, for example, to be a accidental feature of the game that allows you to give money to a person in the game and then they are using a exploit to give you hearts in return, that is not allowed. And I know that that has happened more than once. I know of two people off the top of my head who did this, and at least one of them offered me the same service, and I basically said no, because I was pretty certain that it would violate terms and conditions, even though I hadn't read them. And I do believe people have actually been banned for doing that. Of course, the problem is the people could then say, well, we didn't know, or that the game allowed it. But if they had actually read carefully through the terms and conditions, they might have realized that what they were doing violated those terms and conditions. Or am I reading the end user license agreement? Whatever. This document. TGC account suspension. That game company reserves the right to reduce, liquidate, deactivate, suspend, or terminate your account and or game assets, including without limitation virtual items, housing, characters, and guild halls, or access thereto, if we suspect after investigation that you have used any aspect of the service to conduct any fraudulent or illegal activity. Not, I must admit, sure of any instances where that has happened, but that is sufficiently open-ended that they are well covered. And here we go. No account transfers or sales. Accounts are registered to you personally and may not be sold, gifted, traded, or otherwise transferred at any time under any circumstances. And we're back to no, you can't sell your account. I have heard of accounts in other games being sold. I am not sure whether that was allowed or not, but I know it has occurred. I think it occurred, for example, with EVE Online accounts. Not sure if that violated any terms and conditions. Fees and payment processing. Most of our games can be purchased through digital storefronts, and your rights and obligations with regard to payment made through those services will be provided directly by the digital storefront in question. Sorry, I'm just frowning because... Okay, I thought I saw something interesting happening, and apparently it didn't. Additionally, all in-game purchases, including but not limited to virtual item system purchases, will be payable through the digital storefront through which you originally purchased the game. You agree to pay all fees and applicable taxes incurred by you or anyone using a TGC account you registered. That game company may revise the pricing for its games and all in-game purchases at any time. Unless otherwise noted, all currency references are in US dollars. All fees and charges are payable in accordance with payment terms in effect from the time of the fee or the charge becomes payable. If there is a dispute regarding payment of fees to, or services or products by, that game company, your TGC account may be suspended or closed without warning or notice at the sole discretion of that game company. Ownership and independent origin. All characters, events, and portrayals contained in the game are purely fictional, and any resemblance to real events or real individuals, whether alive or dead, is purely coincidental. We do not claim any rights or interest in or to existing trademarks, trade names, personalities, or likenesses that may accidentally resemble an existing product, service, or person. Furthermore, we do not claim any right, obligation, or liability in and to user-generated content or third-party content otherwise made available in the game. The rights in and to any such third-party content remains with its respective owners. That is actually very similar to what you find. That's a very, very common disclaimer. You see it in books all the time. And now we get to the... I think we're almost... Yep, we're almost there. How long has this taken me so far? Disclaimer. All information, content, services, and material available in the game and related software are provided on an as-is basis to the full extent permissible by law. We disclaim any and all warranties and representations express or implied, including any warranty of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. We do not warrant the non-infringement of any intellectual property right. I remember having to write something like this for that product I worked on many, many years ago. And the lawyer I was talking to rather humorously said, basically what this means, if not this, then something like it. If somebody uses your software to, for example, illegally pilot a 747, it's not your fault. No warranties. That game company and its licensors and distributors disclaim any and all warranties with respect to the privacy integrity of the computer resources you use to operate the software. Neither we nor our licensors or distributors shall be liable for any disruptions, delays, or other omissions in any connection, data exchange, or interaction that you may experience when you use the game, regardless of course. That is, any system failure, server access loss, or data breach resulting from any cause, including without limitation, acts of God, nature, or other causes, by way of example, but by no means a limitation of the foregoing, events such as war, embargo, disturbance in the force, hostile domination by unknown sentient or Borg life forms, or any bacteria, virus, or other unknown infection or pathogen that results in any communicable disease that causes life termination and the subsequent reanimation of bodily function accompanied by limited brain activity. Oh, I'm sorry. That made me laugh. That is funny. Sorry, that actually made me snort. Oh dear. And I haven't even finished the sentence. It just gets funnier. um, well, it's a fairly long sentence, but I'm going to try and find. Okay. Or other unknown infection or pathogen that results in any communicable disease that causes life termination and the subsequent reanimation of bodily function accompanied by limited brain activity as well as an insatiable urge for human flesh. Neither we nor our licensors nor distributors shall be responsible for the conduct of any users or computers that connect, including those infected by the above referenced disease, exchange data or otherwise interact with you or your computer as a result of your use of the game. I'm sorry. That's hilarious. Basically, if there's a zombie outbreak, that game company's not responsible for anything that happens to the game as a result. Oh, I'm sorry. That was absolutely hilarious. Somebody there definitely has a sense of humor. I had no idea that was going to happen. Right, where was I? Excuse me. Limitation of liability. Your purchase and use of the game is at your own risk. We do not warrant that your ability to play the game will be timely, secure, uninterrupted, or defect-free. In no event will we, including our officers, directors, personnel, agents, or employees, nor our affiliates, be liable for direct, indirect, incidental, special, exemplary, or consequential damages, including but not limited to lost profits, loss of business, procurement of substitute goods or services, loss or use or loss of data, or business interruption, however caused, and on any theory of liability, whether in contract, strict liability, or tort arising in any way out of purchase or use of the game. In no event will you be entitled to a refund or chargeback for the game. Now, there's actually an interesting point here. It's that bit at the beginning. We do not warrant that your ability to play the game will be timely, secure, uninterrupted, or defect-free. That means, in the event that you can't play the game because the servers are down, that is not TGC's problem. They are not liable. They obviously would be desperately keen to get it back up and running again because the public relations look would be poor. But just because you bought the game, assuming, well, okay, when I say bought the game, obviously Sky is free to play, But you may think that because you have acquired access using real-world money in the game, that gives you certain rights. No, it doesn't. That is what that is basically saying, unless I am completely misinterpreting it. But me reading that would say, yes, just because you bought the game or you bought assets in the game does not guarantee in any way, shape or form your ability to play it. I think it's also saying that if you play the game at work, that game company is not responsible for your workplace losing profitability or, what's the expression, time. Website terms of service. Hyperlinking to our content. The following organizations may link to our website without prior written approval: government agencies, search engines, news organizations, online directory distributors when they list us in the directory, or may link to our website in the same manner as they hyperlink to the websites of other listed businesses, and system-wide accredited businesses, except soliciting non-profit organizations, charity shopping malls, and charity fundraising groups, which may not hyperlink to our website. These organizations may link to our homepage, to publications, or to other website information, so long as the link A is not in any way misleading, B does not falsely imply sponsorship, endorsement, or approval of the linking party and its products or services, and C fits in within the context of the linking party's site. We may consider sorry, I've been talking for too long. We may consider and approve in our sole discretion other link requests from the following types of organizations: commonly known consumer and or business information sources such as Chambers of Commerce, American Automobile Association, AARP, and Consumers Union.com community sites. Associations or other groups representing charities, including charity giving sites, online directory distributors, internet portals, accounting, law, and consulting firms whose primary clients are businesses, and educational institutions and trade associations. Basically, if you're any one of those, get permission first. In fact, probably not a bad idea if you have any question in your mind, email that game company and ask their opinion or advice. We will approve link requests from these organizations if we determine that A, the link would not reflect unfavorably on us or our accredited businesses, for example, trade associations or other organizations representing inherently suspect types of businesses, such as such as home at work opportunities shall not be allowed to link. B, the organization does not have an unsatisfactory record with us. C, the benefit to us from the visibility associated with the hyperlink outweighs the absence of the same. And D, where the link is in the context of general resource information or is otherwise consistent with editorial content in a newsletter or similar product furthering the mission of the organization. These organizations may link to our homepage, to publications, or to other website information so long as A, the link is not in any way misleading, B, does not falsely imply... Is that a duplication of what they said previously, or am I rereading something? No, I'm not. I will start that paragraph again. These organizations may link to our homepage, to publications, or to other website information so long as the link A is not in any way misleading, B does not falsely imply sponsorship, endorsement, or approval of the linking party and its products or services, and C fits within the context of the linking party's site. Okay, they just repeated that paragraph essentially for slightly different forms of linking. If you are among the organizations listed above and are interested in linking to our website, you must notify us by sending an email to legal@thatgamecompany.com. Please include your name, your organization name, contact information such as a phone number and or email address, as well as the URL of your site, a list of any URLs from which you intend to link to our website, and a list of the URLs on our site to which you would allow to link. Allow 2 to 3 weeks for a response. Approved organizations may hyperlink to our website as follows: by use of our corporate name, by use of the Uniform Resource Locator web address being linked to, or by use of any other description of our website or material being linked to that makes sense within the context and format of content on the linking party's site. No use of our logo or other artwork will be allowed for linking absent a trademark license agreement. Now, that's actually an interesting one, and basically there are certain websites that they would not want to be associated with, probably would never give permission to, and this is the part that says no, you can't do it. And I'm not going to go into details. I don't know how people might respond to some of the things that I have in my head right now, but I can definitely see how that game company would want to control links to them. A more or less, one example might be if you are, for example, a gambling website, assuming that that website is legal, that game company would not want in any way, shape or form to be associated with that kind of website. That actually does remind me of another Minecraft YouTuber. I think it was DocM77, who got into trouble because a link in the video, I think it was the video description of obviously one of his videos, at the time he put that link up, it was entirely legal and appropriate. However, that website was then sold, and I think it was to a gambling organization, and now that they owned the website that DocM77 had previously linked to, it now linked to a gambling site which was not approved. And in fairness, DocM77 had no way of knowing that that would happen, or necessarily that it had happened. So you can see one of the concerns that that game company might be bothered by. Now, I'm not sure what this is. Is this iframes or L-frames? Without prior approval and express written permission, you may not create frames around our web pages or use other techniques that alter in any way the visual presentation or appearance of our website. That's quite reasonable. Reservation of rights. We reserve the right at any time and in our sole discretion to request that you remove any or all links to our website. You agree to immediately remove such links upon our request. We also reserve the right to amend these terms and conditions and the linking policy addressed herein at any time. By continuing to link to our website, you agree to be bound and to abide by these terms and conditions. Yep. That is entirely reasonable, I think. Removal of links from our website. If you find any link on our website or any linked website objectionable for any reason, you may contact us about this. We will consider requests to remove links, but will have no obligation to do so or respond directly to you. Whilst we endeavour to ensure that the information on this website is correct, we do not warrant its completeness or accuracy, nor do we commit to ensuring that the website remains available or that the material on the website is kept up to date. That, by the way, could arguably include these terms and conditions. I did, in fact, post on Facebook about whether this web page that I'm reading from represents the current end user license agreement and terms and conditions, and the opinion was given that yes, it probably was. And furthermore, when I went into the game itself, went under support, this is one of the areas that I was linked to. So that is why I said at the beginning, and I can't remember the exact wording I used, that I said I think this was update current, but it's not necessarily. Uptime guarantee. As we are an independent game studio, there will be no uptime guarantee for our website. However, we will make every attempt to try our best to ensure our website is up and running, budget permitting. If we have it our way, we will run our services forever. In the event that, an internet cable gets severed by an earthquake, and by the way, yes, that has happened in the past, that means that they are not that means we're sorry, but it's not our fault. We can't do anything about it, and they have never guaranteed that this website will be available or up all the time. And to be honest with you, if an earthquake does sever an undersea internet cable, yeah, I think that's quite reasonable. And as I said, that did happen, and I'm trying to remember when. Yeah, that's happened. Disclaimer. To the maximum extent permitted by applicable law, we exclude all representations, warranties, and conditions relating to our website and the use of this website, including without limitation any warranties implied by law in respect of satisfactory quality, fitness for purpose, and or the use of reasonable care and skill. Nothing in this disclaimer will limit or exclude our or your liability for death or personal injury resulting from negligence, limit or exclude our or your liability for fraud or fraudulent misrepresentation, limit any of our or your liability in any way that is not permitted under applicable law, or exclude any of our or your liabilities that may not be excluded under applicable law. The limitations and exclusions of liability set out in this section and elsewhere in the disclaimer, A, are subject to the preceding paragraph, and B, govern all liabilities arising under the disclaimer or in relation to the subject matter of the disclaimer, including liabilities arising in contract, in tort, including negligence, and for breach of statutory duty. To the extent that the website and the information and services on the website are provided free of charge, we will not be liable for any loss or damage of any nature. I don't know what SIEA stands for, but we're going to read it anyway. Purchase and use of items are subject to the Network Terms of Service and User Agreement. This online service has been sub-licensed to you by Sony Interactive Entertainment America. Sorry, SIEA. Which means this next bit is Sony Entertainment Network Europe, I think. Any contact purchased as an in-game store will be purchased from Sony Interactive Entertainment Network Europe Limited and be subject to PlayStation Network Terms of Service and User Agreement, which is available on the PlayStation Store. Please check usage rights for each purchase, as these may differ from item to item. Unless otherwise shown, content available in any in-game store has the same age rating as the game. Excuse me a moment. And there you have it. Now you can understand why nobody ever reads these things. I have been streaming for an hour and a half to read all this. Granted, I could have probably done it at about 15 minutes faster had I not felt obliged to make the odd comment. But you'll notice that I haven't gone over any other aspects of the game. For example, their privacy policy. Well, you can see the list down the side here. I have not covered their privacy policy, the California Consumer Privacy Act, the data sharing agreement. How is inappropriate behavior handled in Sky? Can I generate revenue from videos and live streaming Sky content? Although they did touch on that. And I would safely say at this particular point, please email them first. If you are lucky enough to have a channel which gets monetized. And I can't remember what the 0.26.5 live incident was. Not going to go there at this point. I might actually go back to their legal page at some future time to cover other specific examples not directly covered by the end user license agreement and terms of service. That is surprisingly tiring. I hope anybody listening to this, if you've gone the full hour and a half, you have my thanks. I hope it successfully put you to sleep, which was my intent. And I will see you all next time. Now, tomorrow I will be continuing to stream. What am I streaming tomorrow? Oh, Journey of the Wingless. And I have yet to decide what I'm going to do. But I've got about 24 hours to decide. And if you are following me, and I will see you then, or it will go up on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you all have a good day.